It's Super Bowl week, an event that under normal circumstances probably wouldn't get time on my channel, but in a culture where everything is increasingly political, this year's event is no exception, and perhaps that shouldn't be a surprise, considering it appears the NFL has embraced that politicization, or is at least apathetic to it. We've seen the NFL stand idly by as its players turn pre-game tradition into political grandstanding. We've seen teams stand by their players outright lying about police.
It sucks that the country that we live in now, sometimes you get profiled for the color of your skin.
Last year's Super Bowl ads were the most political I can remember. A lumber company followed the emotional peril of a fictional family illegally immigrating to the United States and their encounter with the border wall. Airbnb virtue signaled about how much they accept, and Audi perpetuated the wage gap lie.
Do I tell her that despite her education, her drive, her skills, her intelligence, she will automatically be valued as less than every man she ever meets?
This creeping politicization into what ought to be unifying apolitical cultural events bums me out. I love football, but not just for the entertainment that it is for me personally. I love football for what it represents socially. It's a common bond we can have with almost any stranger. We may not agree on politics. In fact, it's likely that we don't, but I bet we both saw the game on Sunday. And we can talk about that, and we can actually enjoy each other's company. So it's irritating enough to be told what to think when I just want to be entertained. But the substantial and more meaningful loss here is that social one. The erosion of that cultural commonality, the loss of those water cooler talking points that allow us to interact with each other on civil terms, despite differing religious or political viewpoints. And there's Super Bowl coverage from Reuters this week that goes even one step beyond. It doesn't just inject politics into the event. It implies we all have some sort of moral obligation to concern ourselves with them. And it's not actually even current politics. It's not even something that actually happened. It's hypothetical politics, things that might happen, but we still have to worry about rather than just enjoy the game. Super Bowl stokes hopes, concerns of Minneapolis Somali community, reads the headline. If you're not aware, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and its new stadium are host to the event this year right downtown. Reads the first paragraph, the largest Somali community in the United States is centered just blocks from the site of this year's Super Bowl, but that is too close for comfort for some of the mostly Muslim residents of the Little Mogadishu neighborhood in Minneapolis. The Super Bowl is great, but there's an anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim mood in this country. A lot of people are coming, said Abdurizak Bihi, director of the Somali Education and Social Advocacy Center. That's right, the story isn't Somali residents excited for huge flow of cash directly into their neighborhood. It isn't Somali residents excited to integrate into major American cultural event. Instead, the story is Somali residents are fearful of a hypothetical, yet to materialize problem, and it's apparently on all of us to be vigilant in protecting their feelings rather than just enjoying the damn game. The premises of this article are two. First, that there's an unjustified suspicion of Somalis in Minnesota and Muslims in America more generally. And second, that Somalis and Muslims live under threat and danger, with Americans at large constantly attacking them. And if we consider these premises in tandem, the reasoning in this article completely falls apart. To the first point, leaders in this Somali community claim they are unjustly treated as suspicious by the surrounding population. Our community has been labeled as a national security threat. We live in constant apprehension, said Kamal Hassan, who founded the Somali Human Rights Coalition in Minneapolis after fleeing his homeland. Every day you hear social media threats against our community. Growing anti-Muslim and anti-immigrant sentiment in the United States, fueled by President Donald Trump's statements before and America First rhetoric, has exacerbated anxieties about public attitudes and police surveillance and immigration enforcement, according to community leaders. This talking point is always just thrown around as though there's some demonstrated causal connection between Donald Trump's mean words and public opinion about Muslims, yet they never provide evidence. Why isn't it plausible to surmise those negative attitudes are formed around observed behavior within the Muslim community? Behavior this article actually acknowledges. More than 20 Somali Americans have left Minnesota to join extremist groups overseas, such as ISIS and al-Shabaab. But local leaders say this is a small number that defames a friendly and hardworking people. But whether this information is a justifiable basis for negative public opinion or not, you can't regulate people's opinions, nor should you want to. All you can do is apply the law equally. And per this article, that's exactly what's happening. Any public distrust of the Muslim community does not translate to law enforcement distrust. The FBI has denied that the Somali community was under any special scrutiny for the Super Bowl. It never investigates people or groups based solely on ethnicity, race, or national origin, said Jeffrey Van Nest, media coordinator for the FBI in Minneapolis. Oh, but it's not just negative opinions, they say. Muslims in Minneapolis are actually under violent attack. Because don't forget, back in August, a bomb was thrown in the window of the Dar al-Farouk Mosque in Bloomington. We are vulnerable. We are a few steps away from the stadium, said Muhammad Omar, executive director of the mosque. It's very scary now, the climate we live in. Never mind the fact that the mosque is 9 miles away from the stadium. Never mind the fact that despite 6 months of FBI investigation, there are no leads on either the perpetrator or the motive in this attack. Never mind the fact that the same mosque was allegedly burgled in October, but funny, those were ninja attackers too, who also got away clean, even though the surrounding community lined the pockets of this mosque with more than $100,000 in donations, yet they still can't afford a decent security system. Never mind the fact that circumstantially, this entire story looks like the greatest ruse fundraiser any mosque has ever enjoyed. And think about that. Go-to anti-Muslim hate crime reference #1 in Minneapolis is, objectively speaking, not classifiable as a hate crime at all. Which really got me wondering just how common are race or faith-based attacks against Somalis in Minnesota. And isn't it strange that when members of that Somali community are leaving to join foreign terror groups, we're told that's just a small part of an overwhelmingly good community, so you have no basis on which to judge them. But if there's even a whiff of a hate crime, suddenly that is a justification to live in fear and to judge an entire surrounding community and tell them they have a moral obligation to do better. So what does the actual math look like? Per the reporting, there are about 50,000 Somalis living in the greater Twin Cities area. Based on additional reporting, we can confirm at least 34 cases of members of that Somali community leaving or trying to leave Minnesota to join terror groups like ISIS and al-Shabaab over the last 10 years. That's a rate of about 68 in every 100,000 Somali Minnesotans. In terms of hate crimes, I had a hard time finding the exact data, but let's go with a generous, assuredly high estimate. Per the Star Tribune's reporting, we know that there were all of 14, count them, 14 anti-Muslim hate crimes in the entire state in 2016, and that was a record year. Let's estimate high and say that there have been 14 every year for the last 10 years. That's 140 anti-Muslim hate crimes total over the last decade. Minnesota has a population of 5.5 million people, so that's a rate of roughly 3 in every 100,000 Minnesotans overall committing anti-Muslim hate crimes. In simple terms, the math here shows that a Somali Minnesotan is about 23 times as likely to attempt to join a foreign terror group than a general Minnesotan is to commit an anti-Muslim hate crime. And again, the actual number is assuredly much higher than that, because my estimate here uses record hate crime numbers, higher than what the true numbers are. But per the Somali community and the reasoning presented in this article, skepticism of Somalis based on their crimes is unreasonable, irrational, even hateful, yet we all have some moral duty to be skeptical about broader Minnesota and the Super Bowl crowd, even though the group we aren't supposed to worry about is committing ideologically motivated crime at a rate much higher than the group we are supposed to worry about. Now, the truth is, the rate of Somali Minnesotans leaving to try to join a foreign terror group and the rate of anti-Muslim hate crimes in Minnesota are both quite small. I'm not interested in debating who the real risk is, and I'm not interested in assigning you moral judgment based on your opinion of that risk. What I am interested in is maintaining unifying elements of American culture, like the Super Bowl, without unnecessarily throwing this kind of divisive crap into the process. There is no reason to suppose the Super Bowl is any kind of risk to this Somali community. This stadium hosts 10 plus pro football games a year, in addition to dozens of other events for tens of thousands of people at a time. And despite all that traffic, there is no evidence of any aggressive action taken against this Somali community at all. The premise for this article, ironically, is quelling what's supposed to be irrational fear. But all this article does is perpetuate irrational fear based on nothing but blaming Trump for opinions and an alleged hate crime, which as of now is just a silver-lined cash cow fundraiser for a local mosque. If you're going to inject politics into apolitical American cultural events, it'll take a better reason than that. I just want to watch the damn game, and so does everybody else. And that's exactly why nothing is going to happen to Little Mogadishu on Sunday. We all just want entertainment, not politics. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to come hang out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it.